Okay, guys, it is 11:04. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. First of all, just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me this morning. I think um, most of us are tuning in from a very different office setup than we were used to even just a week or two ago. Life has gotten pretty crazy, and I know that you may have kids or dogs or family members climbing all over you and getting in your space. So I really appreciate you spending the next hour with us talking about what I consider to be a hugely important topic, not just from a career standpoint, but also just from a life standpoint. Thinking about sort of transitions in general, um, change is really the only constant in life. And the better that we can get at navigating change, the more confident that we're going to feel, the happier we're going to feel, and the more successfully we can navigate these types of situations, which are really, really unexpected and not foreseen. So just want to give you sort of a high level overview of what we're going to talk about today. First, it's really exciting because the people who are on the call today, it's really a combo of candidates that I've worked with in the past, some clients, some friends of friends. So some of you know me, some of you don't. I just want to do a really quick high level into my background. Um, and then I want to dive right into the content in terms of, this is a transitional period for a lot of people. I know, there are some people on the call who are, in the midst of, leaving careers and companies that they've been with for many years. I know there are some other people on the call who are sort of considering making big leaps. And I really just want to do everything that I can to serve you and give you as much information and tools for your toolkit as possible. I want you to know that this is a safe place to ask questions. There are no dumb questions. If you have the question, it's very likely that someone else has the question. So please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Mark. Mark is my great intern who started in the midst of all of this craziness, and he's going to help monitor the chat for me with questions. So if it's a confidential question that you want to ask me, feel free to shoot me an email. That way it's, there's no chance you can send it to the group chat. That might be the easiest way to do it. And two, I really don't want you to stress out about writing things down word for word. I would say jot down keywords and phrases, try to be as present as possible. I have prepared a super detailed PDF packet that I'm going to be sending to every single person who's online today that will go through all the things that I'm going to talk about, provide even better detail, links, resources, files, all sorts of things that'll help you. And at the end, really just want to have a great Q&A. So if you have questions, if you want to talk in more specifics, please don't hesitate to, write down your questions and we can get to them at the end. Or if you feel like it's pressing and worth, sort of talking about in the midst of the conversation, I'm open to that too. So really excited again that you're here. Especially in a challenging time, and look forward to going on this quick journey with you guys. So first, I wanted to think about how to introduce myself to you because there are some people who know me well. There's some people who don't know me at all. And I wanted this to be a little bit memorable. So I decided to come up with some different representations of my background in numeric form. So I would ask if anybody had any idea what maybe the two top sets of numbers mean. And feel free to take yourself off mute and make a guess. No wrong guesses, no bad guesses.
Average time to find a new job.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. No, that's not it. This is actually related specific to my background, but that would be interesting. That's an interesting metric. And I would say because every single person is so different and every single sort of search and sort of the goals and outcomes are different, it's hard to say like this is the average time any search takes because the searches are so diverse as the candidates are. But so spoiler alert, that 12 to 15, that's 12 moves in the first 15 years of my life. Or maybe a better way to say it is 12 different places that I lived in the first 15 years of my life. And the reason that I share that with you guys is that I think, again, going back to transitions and thinking about hosting this webinar, one of the questions I asked myself is, what do I know about transitions? Like, what are the transitions that I've been through in my life, and what gives me, sort of the ability to speak thoughtfully on a topic like this? One, it was the way that I grew up. My dad was in the military when I was a kid. He transitioned out of the military around the time of the Gulf War, and then just became someone who is very driven and motivated and successful. And so, we moved a lot of different places, and those transitions, were challenging, of course, at the time. They also have, I think, given me a unique sort of perspective and a unique skill set. And essentially, I look at this as, 12 different times I started over. The next number is actually my total number of moves, 19 moves in 36 years. I actually just wanted to figure that out for fun because I felt like, God, it's got to be a big number. The other numbers are 10 years. That's how long I've been a recruiter. 6 years of that have been within the commercial real estate industry. And then after I created this presentation, I thought of another fun number, which is the number 9. 9 months that I spent as a art teacher doing my student teaching. So K through 12. That's actually what my degree is in. And I think that that's an interesting thing to share with you guys as well, because again, a path that I was going down for several years, thought that I was going to pursue as a career path. At the end of the day, it didn't work out as planned. And so that was another sort of opportunity for me to transition and start over. And I think at this point, I understand transitions from every angle. I've helped hundreds of candidates make career transitions. I've made transitions myself. Some of them were planned, some of them were unplanned. But that's just a little bit about me. I am the founder of CRE Recruiting, which is a commercial real estate focused recruiting firm that works nationally with companies across all facets of the industry. And that's just a bit about me. So thank you again for humoring me with that introduction. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, I'm a big quote person. One of my favorite quotes, and actually, too, I just heard this for the first time last night as I was taking a walk with my dogs. I was listening to this podcast. It was a podcast, I think, titled Perspective by Trent Shelton. And he dropped this quote: "Your perspective can either be your power or your prison," which I think is so relevant, so topical, applies to so many other situations too. Personally, I have been impacted by the coronavirus. Obviously, my work situation has changed. My business has been hit. I've been personally sick. Unfortunately, I have all the symptoms, and no testing is available, and there's really no medicine beyond Tylenol, and a positive outlook. So I'm doing my best, and I am trying in this difficult season to put it in perspective, to be grateful, to find sort of the silver lining in this situation. And really, in moments like this where we feel like there is no control, the thing really that I think that we can control, that we can be in charge of, is how we show up, how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, how we sort of control the controllable. So I wanted to share that quote with you. I think in times like these and the transitions that we go through, those are opportunities for us to build unique skill sets, unique superpowers, and become even more truly who we are. And an example in my life, going back to my introduction, moving that many times, I think was a superpower, or it turned into a superpower rather. I learned to build relationships quickly. I learned how to find common ground with people. I learned how to have the confidence to take on new challenges, new situations. Um, I was actually talking to a candidate yesterday, and one of the things that he's going through personally is his wife is about to give birth to a baby. They already have a few kids at home, but he has been so busy because the markets have been so great over the last several years that he really hasn't had the time to slow down and take, let's say, even a week or 10 days or 2 weeks at home with one of their new kids. And so this is the silver lining for him. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna in this moment because I know that there are things that um, are critically serious about this situation. But I do think that reorienting myself personally to look at the positives. One, I'm getting to help people today. I'm getting to, spend more time with my dogs. I'm getting to, maybe move more and take more walks. I try to cling as much as possible to the silver linings of the situation and make sure that my perspective is one that empowers me, not one that makes me feel hopeless or powerless to the situation. So I hope you like that quote. I hope it resonates with you. I want to dive right into, some of the initial sort of steps and recommendations that I have for you. And to, just to go back for a second, I really understand that if you are going through a layoff, if you have had your hours cut, if you've had your income taken away, that you are not ready to see any silver linings yet. It is too fresh. It is too painful. And I want to honor that. And I want you to give yourself time and space to realize that these things that you're experiencing, these big moments in life, are not to be taken with a grain of salt. They're huge changes, and I want you to be kind to yourself in terms of how quickly you're able to bounce back from this. So tactically, first steps, if you're on your way out today, or if you left last week, you are in no better position to remember the people that you feel are important, that you want to stay connected to, and you want to maintain relationships with. So really the first step I could tell you, and it seems very obvious, is one, just to connect with people. If you have their contact information, send them a quick text or an email, whatever is most appropriate for the relationship that you have with the person. Maybe your Facebook friends, whatever the case might be, get in contact with them and send them just a quick message to let them know you value the relationship, you want to stay in touch, you're no longer with the company that you were at previously, and you want to regroup with them once you've had some time to process this. Again, don't feel like you have to write any of this down. I actually have a templated message in the PDF that I'll send you today. And the idea here is not that you are going into a post-mortem with this person. You're not reaching out to people necessarily to commiserate or to rant. If you do have someone in your life that you trust, or a couple people in your life that you trust, I would say use those people as the outlet for that sort of conversation. The object of this sort of first step is, one, to reach out to people or get their contact information so you can reach out to them, and to keep them warm and to set the stage for reconnecting with them in the future when you're ready to fully engage in your search. One of the things that I think inevitably happens anytime we have a situation where people feel like the rug has been pulled out from underneath them is that the knee-jerk reaction is to um, panic. Hey, oh no, I need to get my resume up to date. I need to get my LinkedIn profile up to date. I need to start applying. I need to send my resume to everyone that I know. I need to go to an event. We can't do that obviously now. But all those other things I think are counterproductive while you are in the heat of an emotional sort of state. So I want you to take a deep breath, and actually it might be good for all of us. I just want to make sure I'm not talking too fast for you guys. So I'm going to take a deep breath. It is very difficult to successfully conduct a job search or understand what the next right step can be if you are in the midst of stuffing your feelings down and trying to white knuckle your way through a job search. The things that make people successful in job searches are communicating with confidence and authenticity, wowing people with great first impressions and great follow-up. Your ability, from my perspective, to make a successful career decision, to weigh maybe one opportunity against another, to evaluate whether or not this is actually a step forward for you or maybe a step to the side or a step backward, is very, very difficult if you are in the heat of the moment. So, first step, just to recap, connect with the people. If you can't connect with them over the phone, send an email, communicate just the very basic message. I value our relationship. You may have heard that I'm leaving the company. I would love to stay in touch with you for the future. Let's regroup when things settle down a bit. Pressing pause, really giving yourself that space to process and think about, sort of your next steps, and practice self-care. Self-care is I'm glad that it's more of a conversation than it's ever been before. But I think there are two different kinds of self-care, and I'm super guilty of the first kind, which is a whole package of Oreos, hashtag self-care, or 10 hours of Netflix, hashtag self-care. If you can think back to the last difficult transition or experience that you had in your life, maybe it was the end of a relationship. Maybe it was a change to your family structure. Maybe it was a new boss. Whatever the most recent challenge that you had, I just want you to think about that for a moment and think about the different things that you did to cope with that. There are positive coping strategies and there are negative coping strategies. Negative coping strategies might be a whole package of Oreos and Netflix. I mentioned those specifically because those are mine. If I know that in a moment of crisis, I go right for Oreos, I go right for Netflix, I go right for things that set Adam Rosenfeld, what kind of Oreos? Well, pause the seriousness for a second. My favorite Oreos are the I don't even know what you call it. They're like specialty flavored Oreos, and they're always coming out with new ones. And so my favorite are the cinnamon roll flavored Oreos, the carrot cake Oreos, and the red velvet Oreos. Those are all three probably tied for favorite. And the birthday cake ones are amazing also. So thank you for the question. Another fun fact about me. Yeah, I freaking love Oreos. So back to negative coping mechanisms. If I know I'm about to fall into a package of Oreos and the couch for 10 hours with Netflix, and I know that's a pattern that I have, I can create a strategy for myself. Whenever I feel like grabbing those Oreos, maybe it's taking a walk with the dogs. Maybe it's putting on my favorite playlist and having a dance party. Maybe it's, going for a run. I think if you can figure out what your patterns are, what your negative coping mechanisms are, and literally put it down on a Post-it note. Like, this is really, it might sound really silly to you, but it's effective. Put it on your computer screen. The feelings will come up. You will have that moment where you're like, I need that package of Oreos, or I need to watch the Tiger King for the third time. The more you can interrupt that negative coping mechanism and replace it with a positive one, the better you're going to feel. Because physically and psychologically, I can tell you from millions of Oreos consumed, you never, ever feel great after doing that. So, enough about Oreos. I guess questions at all on any of those what to do first sort of topics? Tana is saying they have a hazelnut spread Oreo, perhaps, but I am actually allergic to hazelnuts. So although it's probably not an authentic actual hazelnut filling, I'm just probably better off staying away. I don't need another new Oreo to like. Okay, so we're gonna move on. All right. So thinking about sort of myself and the way that I handle challenging situations, like the way that I handled not being able to go into my office and having my business change because of the coronavirus. I know from my perspective, it takes me about 7 to 10 days to move through some of the heavy feelings. One of the things that I do is journal, and there's actually a journal prompt in the PDF that I'm going to be sending you after this. And I would encourage you, maybe some of the things that I'm saying and suggesting to you sound a little far-fetched or out there or not something like you would do previously. I would really encourage you to approach the exercises and the ideas with an open mind. This is a new day. This is a scenario we've never dealt with before, and you don't know what's going to help you and what's going to be the best outlet for you moving forward. So, another great quote, moving on, the best way to predict your future is to create it. I point this particular quote out again to reinforce the idea that there is control, there is empowerment to be found in these sorts of transitions. And I want everybody to resist the urge to immediately drive their car back down the same road you were traveling. There is a chance you were on the right, perfect career path for you, but there's also an even greater chance, from my perspective and from the conversations that I've had over the last 10 years with candidates, that you have been going through life at an accelerating pace, whether professionally or personally, and you might not have ever had the opportunity to slow down for the amount of time that you're slowing down now, to look around and really thoughtfully consider what it is that you want, what's important to you, what do you value, what absolutely is a deal breaker for you. I think all of us may have had this experience. I know that I've, at different points in my career, found myself working hard to climb up a ladder without even looking closely enough at the building it was propped up against to see if this was even a place I wanted to be. This, again, for the silver lining people, um, this is one of the only times I can think of in my life where I have had the ability to really be self-reflective without interruption. Some of that is I have dogs, not kids, and they don't talk. So I understand it's not perfect. But take advantage of the opportunity to really spend some time and do some digging and thinking. And I think you will find value there. So again, more tactical sort of things. This is the particular journaling exercise that I recommend. And I recommend you doing this while things are still as fresh in your mind as possible. I tell candidates all the time when they're going through transitions like this, to be a scientist, to get really curious about their prior experience. Think about all the various different facets of it, and really give yourself the space and the time to thoughtfully consider a couple different things. The first, what did I learn? What sort of tools, skills, technology, what projects have you conquered? What are the things that you didn't have prior to this experience that are going with you in your toolkit? And two, just writing these things out, really, creating a bulleted list or a mind map or whatever way your brain works to organize this information. I want you to be really aware of all the things that you learned. And beyond that, what did you enjoy about the experience that you just had? Um, what were the tasks and projects that you worked on where you felt most alive and most in the flow? And what different hats were you able to wear? And what were the things that made you excited to hop out of bed and put your feet on the cold floor in the morning? Like what really made it a good experience for you? And conversely, what are you not going to allow into your life again? What do you want to leave in the past? What didn't work for you about this experience? It could have been a cultural issue. It could have been the fact that you didn't have a seat at the table or your voice wasn't heard. One of the things, maybe another way to pose this question is, what would you have changed if you could? Were there things that you tried to change and weren't able to? All of those questions, I think, are a great sort of way to understand and put onto paper and get out of your head and stop ruminating and thinking about all the things that happened, and really sort of use this information to inform your search moving forward. For instance, maybe you love that you were the leader of a team and you got to manage transactions, but you hated financial modeling. That level of clarity is really important, and you might not get there without going through an exercise like this. Knowing that you loved the team building aspect or the team management aspect and running deals is super valuable, and we can use that information. We can emphasize it more clearly in your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. You can have that sort of soundbite in your back pocket to communicate with companies during the interview process. And again, it's just an opportunity for you to solidify the learnings of the last situation, the good, the bad, the ugly, and use that to make sure that you are not recreating the past if the past wasn't something that you wanted to recreate. Does that make sense to everybody? I don't know if I have any questions in the chat. Mark, anything at all?
Nothing in the chat, mostly just the stuff about the Oreos.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have to say there. Let me just pause for 1 second and see if there's anything else that pops up there for me. Okay. All right. So we're good. Surprise, it's another quote. This is one of my favorites. It's attributed to a ton of different people. I think this is the first person who said it. If it's not, don't at me. I did my best. I really, really love this quote, and I say it to myself 100 times a day because I am a very hopeful person. But hope without action is not a strategy. And so we've gone through some of the hard work, right? Assuming that you're giving yourself time and space to process the feelings. And back to the feelings piece for just a second. Losing your job through any means is one of the most stressful experiences that you can have in your entire life. Ever, period, full stop. It is one of the most challenging events we will experience. I don't want you to underestimate the amount of time that it takes you to process those things. And so if you're going through this process, if you're working through all the feelings, if you're going through and taking inventory and stock of everything that happened before, and you're using that as a guide going forward, the next step really is to be super tactical. What are the things that you can do on a daily basis to move yourself in the right direction and begin to build some really strong forward momentum? So again, more tactical information. Don't feel like you have to write this down. Again, everything is in the PDF. I tried to make it as easy as possible so you guys could just be present here with me. So diving right in, one of the things that I've learned over and over probably in my life, but really has been the most evident maybe in the last year and a half, is that my energy level, my mindset, and my ability to focus are the three things that are most critical to my success as a person. Whether that's personally or professionally, making sure that those three things, energy, mindset, and focus, are there, have really been sort of the biggest game changer for me. And the way that I have had the most amount of impact and the best leverage with those things is through establishing really structured sort of habits and routines. And to give you a couple examples, and again, these are in the PDF, there are many different schools of thought. So you can Google morning and nighttime routines of high achievers. You can see, what Bill Gates does every morning or what Oprah Winfrey does every morning. I don't necessarily think you should go out and just copy that and use that. It might not work for you. I, for one, am not a morning person, and the Miracle Morning, most of the Miracle Morning community wakes up at 4 or 5 a.m. So there are things that I can learn from the Miracle Morning community. Their acronym is SAVERS, and SAVERS, each letter stands for a different practice. I think it's scribing or writing, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reflection, and silence. Those are the savers. So that to me is valuable, and maybe those are some things that I can incorporate into my routine, but maybe for me the 5 a.m. workout or wake up is counterproductive. That's an example of a routine. Another example, and I want to share this one specifically because it's actually a free challenge that starts on Monday, and again, I'll send you the link. It's in the PDF. Is the next 90-day challenge. If you've ever heard of a woman named Rachel Hollis, or Dave Hollis, her husband, Rachel wrote 2 New York Times bestsellers, Girl, Wash Your Face and Girl, Stop Apologizing. I'm a huge fan of her. I consume a lot of her content. And she has what is called the 5 to Thrive. And she has some other practices that I've incorporated into my day. So those habits and routines for me have been super crucial. Again, be a scientist, try things, adapt, test, and implement a structure that works perfectly for you. LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. And I know this is super probably obvious and basic coming from someone like me. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be. I have an article for you or a resource in the PDF. If you are on LinkedIn and you haven't taken it to the next level, excuse me, please see the other article in the PDF to step up your game. And everyone, regardless of their experience level, really should be setting goals around a website like LinkedIn. Again, to the negative coping strategies for a moment, be aware of the social media vortex. If you're somebody who's super prone to scrolling, maybe your goal is to give yourself a 30-minute window. And in that 30-minute window, you share one article, you make 2 comments, you make 2 new connections or send 2 new messages to people. Whatever the goal is, make it measurable, make it daily or consistent, as in maybe you go in 3 times a week, and that will really help you to be more successful in the use of that platform. Adam Rosenfeld says 2251 on LinkedIn, 2 comments, 2 connects, 5 likes, 1 post. I love that 2251. If you don't mind, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to tell people about that. I think that's a good one. Yeah, again, scrolling is not as effective, but using LinkedIn as the strategic tool that it is effective. There are a lot of people out there who are super negative about social media. Social media is just a tool. It can be used for good or evil. Make sure that you're using it for good. So creating accountability, this is a huge one. Again, going through any transition, don't try to do everything by yourself. And I'm going to repeat that again for the people in the back. You don't need to do it by yourself. And actually, statistically, and I'll find the article, but it is shown that when you allow someone to do a favor for you, they actually like you more. So this idea that if you ask for help, it will be seen as weak or people won't like you as much is totally wrong, as evidenced by the fact that I put this together in less than 48 hours, this webinar. Granted, I spent a lot of hours making sure the content was great for you guys and putting together the resources, but I reached out to my network for help. 10 people shared on LinkedIn, 5 people shared on Facebook, a whole bunch of people forwarded my emails. So let people help you, and also help other people. As you're going through this, maybe you have a trusted colleague that you think can be an accountability partner for you. You can work through this transition together. You can provide each other encouragement. You can be a sounding board. You can even serve as professional references for each other, which is super valuable. So again, accountability partners, I think are difficult to maybe find or structure. It's just sort of maybe it's not something you've done before. There are more resources in the PDF that you can use for that. There's a great video and there's a great podcast that takes an even deeper dive that I'm sharing with you.
Yeah. We have a question from Sarah
Sure.
Bogger. What is the time horizon for the 2251? Do you think would be the best for someone who's actively trying to use LinkedIn?
Yeah, Adam thanks, Adam. Adam does it daily, which I think is great. I know if you're not using LinkedIn right now, trying to use LinkedIn daily might seem overwhelming, but challenge yourself to do it for 5 days, Monday through Friday, next week. My challenge to you, log into the platform, create a goal for yourself, do the 2251. It can be difficult. Yeah, Adam, that's exactly what I was going to say, Adam. So creating your own content or posting your own content, that can feel heavy and challenging to do every single day. So maybe you start with once a week. Great advice, Adam. I think that's awesome. Okay, so back to, we spoke on accountability, tracking your progress. Again, this might seem super obvious, but it is rare for me to find a candidate who's actually doing this in a really sort of structured way. After you've gone through the process of feeling the feelings and creating sort of your ideal vision of the future, you are going to start actually, reaching out to people and networking and applying for jobs and things like that. The most successful people that I know who are in sales or who manage client relationships or important projects, they at the very least have an Excel spreadsheet. So having the pertinent information about the roles that you're pursuing is absolutely crucial. The phone rings and it's a recruiter or a hiring manager, you have one chance for that first impression. So having that information at your fingertips is really, really important. Don't worry about recreating the wheel. We have one. We have a link to it in the PDF that you can use, and you can again, change it to suit your own individual needs, but make sure you're tracking what you're doing, that you're not just sending 1,000 resumes out into the vortex. That is a very, very difficult way to be successful. And so that's a huge, huge recommendation. The last really big tactical tip is to create that network, and reach back out to those connections from the past. Once you have that clarity as to, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm actively pursuing, this is what I'm excited about. Again, back to the altruism of people. People want to help you. They want to be a resource to you. So let them make introductions or write recommendations for your LinkedIn profile. Let them give you referrals or pass your resume along, and don't be afraid to ask for that help. So questions on any of that, you guys? Wow. So we have 15 minutes roughly for questions. I really, really appreciate the time that you guys are spending here. So I'll stay as long as there are questions. And at the end of this webinar, again, I'm going to send out that PDF. I welcome feedback as well. If there are topics that you want to dive more deeply into, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's resume formatting, or whatever the case might be. Again, I'm here to help. I want to be the best resource possible. So are there any questions? Oh, Mike Lynn, that's $1 million question. How do you think the CRE brokerage community will be affected by the pandemic? This is such a big question. One of the things that I have been watching for the last several years, given my background in working in, larger publicly traded brokerage communities and companies, is that during, the last 10 years of expansion that we experienced, a lot of those companies, a lot of the larger companies took on a lot of risk. Maybe it was a lot of debt. Maybe they were buying a lot of talent. Maybe they were preparing to go public, so they were trying to gain as much competitive market share as possible. Maybe they were scaling their infrastructure to be able to compete better with each other. I think a lot of the larger firms have overgrown their businesses to a place that's not sustainable for every market. And that was true of 2008 as well. I mean, a lot of the larger firms took a big hit. I do think that now there is an opportunity for some of the smaller, maybe mid-size or more boutique firms to be really nimble, to pick up some great talent who maybe wouldn't have been open to anywhere but a large firm in the past. What I'm hoping doesn't happen is that people leave brokerage. I think that you saw that in 2008, and what happened, the downstream impacts of that at many companies, is that you have sort of a generational gap. You don't have people who have a certain number of years of experience, because during the recession, 70% of those people walked out the door. And that creates real problems for the future in terms of companies being able to grow and make sure that their workforce represents the clients that they're serving. So I think it will bounce back. I think it will be different. I think this will change us. It'll change us tactically in a lot of the business practices, but I'm hoping it will make people more cognizant of the fact that it's irresponsible to expand beyond what is sustainable for corrections in the market, because they're inevitable. Really, really good question. Okay, Adam Rosenfeld, our company hired a bunch of senior level staff for CRE, but laid off others. Seems like people will be selling Q3, Q4. I agree with that. And Adam, just to clarify, do you mean selling companies, or do you mean selling properties? Selling real estate. I agree, 1000%. I think that a lot of deals that weren't hard yet, sorry for the people who are non-brokers, but a lot of the deals that weren't hard yet, I think there's a lot of wait and see happening. And so I think you will see things pick back up a little bit later on this year, 1000%. Okay. M. Duraco, if you feel that you are currently underpaid, how would you go about a raise or looking to new firms? One, my advice in almost everything is to be a scientist. So I would use your resources as much as possible. Salary.com is a great resource. There's also compensation information that you can find sometimes on Glassdoor and some other sources. I would talk to friends who are in similar positions or roles and working maybe at different companies. And I would find a, sort of data set that you can pull from. And then I would use that data set to empower myself to have a really confident conversation with my employer. And that conversation wouldn't be necessarily 100% based in, hey, this is what is market, but it would be, this is what is market and this is my contribution. And this is what I think is fair. I think other things too, like in a climate like this, it's going to be difficult to get a raise, but there are other things you can use to negotiate. Obviously, like the work from home chip is off the table at the moment because we're all doing that. And that's something, ironically, that people have been asking for years and companies have been super unwilling to give. So hopefully that is an unintended positive consequence of everything that we're experiencing. But there are other things like maybe an additional week of vacation. Maybe it's flexibility in terms of your hours. Think about all the different things that are non-financial based that are easy yeses for your company. Sometimes it's title. Maybe you're at a company that doesn't have an appropriate title structure for the rest of your competitive set. So think about all those things. Matt Vanucci, do you know anything about the WARN Act and if that applies to the COVID situation? Matt, I don't. I would have to do some more research for you there, but I would love to have an offline conversation with you about that too, because I think it's pretty highly technical. And I am not an expert. So, M. Duraco, too much yield expansion from lenders. Agreed. Simone Chapon, lots of opportunities in this industry to implement technology solutions, but not a lot of talent that understands both. 1000% I agree with you. I'll tell you what, I am not the world's most technologically savvy person, but I do think that this particular experience has really helped me to up my game, as evidenced by the quality of the webinar that you're experiencing right now. When I left the corporate world, hope to never be in charge of webinars ever again, but I figured it out. So hopefully this will be a wake-up call for people who are not great at technology to learn. And two, maybe it opens up new opportunities for people who are, advanced in their skill set to come in and make us better. Because as an industry, I think, Simone, you would agree, we lag way behind in a couple different areas. Technology, maybe flexibility and sort of trends around that. And also I would say in terms of marketing and design and things like that. Adam Rosenfeld, the federal WARN notice obligation is not triggered. Interesting. Okay. So it sounds like WARN has sort of an exclusionary clause that means that this situation can't be temporary. I have not followed the recent news closely enough to know if a sort of addendum or sort of add-on could be put in there. I would imagine that they will do something about this, just knowing all of the trillions of dollars that they're putting at stake here. I would imagine that they would consider that. But maybe that's something to be talked about within specifically in commercial real estate, you know, your trade groups and their lobbying contingencies, the, you know, ICSC, NMHG, those are the two big ones that I think are going to be heaviest hit by everything that's happening. So maybe that's something to investigate with some of those organizations. Other questions? All right. Well, I so appreciate, again, just to reiterate my message at the beginning, this is a very, very challenging time. It's important that we are kind, not just to other people, but to ourselves, and that we use this opportunity, again, looking at the silver lining, to recalibrate, to explore sort of the road that we had been going down and determine if that really is the road that makes sense moving forward. So I will leave you with that thought. I will send you the PDF of resources that I shared today. I would love it if you gave me some feedback. I am open to your critical feedback in terms of how this could have been improved, or other topics that you might be interested in hearing about. As my business has changed, I have a lot more time on my hands, and I love more than anything helping people, which is why I became a recruiter in the first place. So thank you. Be well, be safe, and have a great weekend.